Um, my research topic was based on right to information and sustainable development, a development agenda for Sri Lanka. Before I develop on my research, I want to draw your attention to something said by James Madison. He has said that knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power knowledge gives. A popular government without popular information or the means of obtaining it is but a prologue to farce or tragedy, or perhaps both. So what I seek to analyze is whether Sri Lanka has faced a farce or a tragedy, or whether we are both. Right to information is seen as a very controversial right, and I like to see it information. We all have a thirst for information. We all seek information, at least if not for the governmental purposes or participatory democracy. We seek information on each other for gossip sakes. So information and right to information is still very important to us, and it is an inherent human nature to seek information. My research outline is based on identifying right to information and the legal framework on right to information, and trying to analyze the interlinkages between sustainable development and information, whether there is any link between sustainable development and achieving sustainable development. What is the link that right to information has in that? And what can be done for Sri Lanka in terms of achieving sustainable development? Therefore, my research problem relates to why would right to information law be important in achieving the sustainable development goals, and how is that connected to Sri Lanka? What can we do and make recommendations in the Sri Lankan context? Objective of my research was to identify the importance of a right to information law in Sri Lanka with a focus on sustainable development, because as we all know, sustainable development is an idealistic concept that is referred to in the international community and even in the Sri Lankan judiciary. But has it become a practical reality? Has it yet become a tool of law, where law approaches sustainable development through the legal framework and policies, and where the sustainable development is implemented in Sri Lanka? So in implementing sustainable development, what role does right to information play? So here I need to note that in Sri Lanka we neither have a sustainable development law expressly or right to information law. In 19th Amendment, of course, there's a recognition of right to information, but implementation mechanism is still lacking through the legal framework. Therefore, the framework of research relates to sustainable development, right to information, and Sri Lankan context, recommendations for the context. As all legal research, my methodology is heavily focused on qualitative data gathered from international instruments, constitutional provisions, as we legal scholars love the statutes and case law. It's based on the basic and primary sources of law. Also, I have researched on some scholarly articles, textbooks, and there have been a number of reports, especially by the World Bank and UNFCCC and the UN reports that have been very important in this research. Right to information as a fundamental right. As I began my speech, right to information is an inherent right that we seek. So all the fundamental rights are inculcated in us. That is why it is fundamental. Right to life is fundamental to us. Right to seek information, it comes from within us. We seek information. We need to know what's going on in the government. We need to know what's happening in the political arena. That need is fundamental. I'm not talking in a legal term, I'm talking in your sensibilities. So even in the sensibilities, we feel that we need to know. If we think we need, then it is fundamental. If we think we need life, it's fundamental. If we think we need water, it's fundamental. If we think we need information, it's fundamental. So, That's one basis for establishing it as a fundamental right. And the other basis is we are a democracy. All the societies in today's is a democracy. So if we are a democracy, one thing lacking in our democracies is participatory democracy, where the citizen participation is missing. There is no citizen is not a part of the democratic process except for voting. And even when we vote, do we know for what we are voting? Do we really know the political agendas and the political philosophies followed by our parliamentarians when we vote for them? Why do we not know? Because we don't have access to information. It is an inherent duty for the effective governance of a country that people are a part of the process. People make laws for the people. It is we who elect our legislators. It is we who are electing our legislators to make laws on our behalf. So we need to know what they are doing in the legislature. At least we need to know that what we are doing in the legislature. That's the basis for right to information. I will turn into the link between sustainable development and right to information later onwards, but this is the basis why we need right to information. So this need was recognized at the outset. The first meeting of the UN, they recognized this and they said, of course, right to information is a fundamental right. And the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which has now gained the status of a customary international law, also enshrines this principle. Right to information, a fundamental right. ICCPR, again, the Civil and Political Rights Convention, again establishes this as a fundamental right. Also, the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of opinion and expression has extensively dealt with this. Now, the link of why UN Special Rapporteur on opinion and expression is talking about this is we can't express ourselves properly and accurately if we don't have information. For example, if I don't have information to find, if I don't have information on what are the international resources, I can't come and talk about fundamental right to information. That is the need, and that is why for expression, information is needed. We don't talk nonsense. If we don't talk nonsense, to talk accurately, to talk sense, we need information. Information is also linked up to a host of other issues such as equality, human rights, corruption, and battling corruption. On the other hand, my focus is on information relating to environment. So in terms of environment, there are a few declarations and international instruments which have expressly recognized right to information as a fundamental right, where Rio Declaration has, through the 10th principle, they have recognized this. Also, the implementation mechanism for sustainable development put up by the Agenda 21 also has recognized the need for right information, along with the Aharas Convention and the Cartagena Protocol on biodiversity to the Convention on biological diversity. So these are the international conventions that have recognized right to information as a part and parcel of protection of environment. So that link is already established in the international community. Sustainable development. My main focus is on sustainable development. My argument is that Sri Lanka needs to, or Sri Lanka has an obligation to implement sustainable development, and that in implementing this, right to information is a effective and a very important tool. So sustainable development, as we all know, I think every one of us studied this for Parisaradyane or environmental studies when we were students, saying that it is preserving the natural resources while fulfilling the needs of the present community for the future generations. That is sustainable development. This definition actually came from from the Brundtland report which is titled as Our Common Future. So this is a forward-looking concept. However, apart from that, sustainable development has a very unique role to play in developing nations as well. Now, development as seen as sustainable development is most of the time seen as one of the obligations of a developed country, because they are the people who they have more emissions, they are the people who pollute the environment more. But sustainable development also has a very unique agenda in countries like Sri Lanka, because it links up three very crucial things: environment, social development and economic development. Sri Lanka, we know, is for 50 years being a developing country. So for more than 50 years we've been a developing country. If we want to get out of this developing country tag, we always focus on economic development. So economic development is one of the main focuses on Sri Lanka. At the same time, Sri Lanka also has a social crisis where there is no equality of distribution of resources. We always say, in our common parlance, we say the gap between the poor and the rich is getting bigger, and the middle class is suffering as a result. This is all because the social development has not attained to the level that we don't fulfill justice. Justice not in the sense of justice in law, but in the sense of distribution of resources. That is also justice. So equal distribution of resources. And also ensuring that there is gender equality. That is again social development, where a woman would earn the same wages as a man, and women are employed to the same extent as a man. We always take this example of practicing in law. We ask how many practitioners, how many law students are there in the lecture halls, and how many practitioners are there. How many law students are there in the lecture halls, and how many Supreme Court justices are there. Luckily we had Justice Rani Bandaranayake, but unfortunately that became a tale of woe. However, moving on from that, what I need to focus is that Sri Lanka has a lot to gain if we implement the sustainable development, if we implement sustainable development as a concept. So if we implement this, we can actually, my argument is that we can attain development on a more balanced manner, where we have balanced most of the crucial areas that needs to be balanced. So implementation of sustainable development on an international level has already been established, and the framework is set out. So it's already there. We need to just take out what we can and build up our own mechanism. I'm not saying that we need to copy them, but we have to build up on that. And if we have our own framework on sustainable development, it will help us to achieve a more effective democracy and a more effective rule of law. So I mentioned democracy and rule of law. In a country with rule of law, right to information is a sine qua non. You can't have rule of law without information, because law is closely connected to information. I want to draw your attention to a very practical aspect in right to information, because now access to information is key. So we say that rule of law is about transparency of the government. But how can we ensure transparency of the government? Through judicial review. We need to go to court. Citizens have to take the government to court if they are going beyond their powers. So how do we do that if we don't know what they're doing? If we don't know what the government is doing, if we don't know what executive actions are being taken, if we don't know the development policies of the government, how are we to question them? So that is why information is key in a democracy. And that connects to social development aspect in the sustainable development agenda as a goal. Also, it connects to equality and participation, and that again connects to social development in sustainable development. So we can see now, once I have drawn your attention to environment and the link between right to information and the environment, and now we have seen the connection between social development and right to information. So we can see that right to information has a key role to play in the Sustainable Development Agenda. So that is why I'm mentioning a lot of words like good governance, rule of law, anti-corruption, democracy. All of these are very much linked and very much a part and parcel of right to information, because that is a pathway or that is a tool for us to achieve good governance, democracy, rule of law, and to combat corruption. All of these can be done through information. If citizens have information, they can combat it. After that, we will take matters into our hands through law in a legal way. So in the Sri Lankan context, as I mentioned earlier, the recent attempt was through the 19th Amendment. Until then, there were several attempts to amend the constitution, to introduce a bill, but still it has not been expressly stated in a law. There is no legal framework, but the National Environment Act has recognized right to information, or at least enshrines right to information through the EIA process. Sri Lanka is a colonial country, so we have taken a lot from the colonial masters as we call them still, as we think of them as masters, so we still do, unfortunately. Anyway, so the colonial legacy is still to be seen through this Official Secrets Act, Press Council law. All of these laws have enshrined a culture of secrecy among the public officials, public sector. Anyway, one of the key judgments given by Justice A.R.B. Amarasinghe in the Bulankulama case recognizes this link between right to information and sustainable development law. Since my time is running out, I will quickly sum up. I want to draw your attention to the Goldface Green case. Actually, in the Goldface Green case, the EFL, or the Environment Foundation Limited, raised this issue of there was going to be a mega leisure complex. Goldface Green was going to be taken up by a private company, and it was going to be turned out to a mega leisure complex, and there was a contract for this effect. This was made public by the Environmental Foundation Limited through the court case. So the public actually didn't have information until this case came up. If we didn't have information, today Goldface would be a leisure complex. So in order to stop that kind of situations and to ensure environmental protection along with sustainable development for a better tomorrow, I strongly recommend a strong legal framework on right to information. Thank you very much for your patience.